I will be talking about is several experiments in which we try to investigate what are the hypotheses that are used to predict the world, and we use the visual search task to investigate it. So we predict the world. It is commonplace now for many things, starting from households and then in cognitive revolution, like Brunner and Gregory perceptual hypothesis. So we know that we predict the external world. For example, we can predict many things, like the winter in St. Petersburg. And there are things that we expect, something like that. And there are things that we got. So, what was a recent suggestion is that when our hypothesis about the world failed, we have an affective feedback. So it's negative in case of failed hypothesis, and it's positive when our hypotheses are confirmed through consistency checking or through some external feedback. And basically, those hypotheses, they don't need to be elaborated. They can be as simple as I see an apple, or there is something in front of me. And this suggestion has been, again, made in many works, for example, in Brunner, in Vine, and also in works of Professor Alaklatos, who is here now. And so, yeah, we suggested that the feedback about the accuracy of hypothesis is experienced as a kind of positive or negative effect. So basically, this suggestion means that notion they support the development of the realistic model of the external world. For example, suggestions have been made by Ramachandran and Kirstein when they were talking about the perception of art, and also by Professor Alaklatos. And this is kind of, on one hand, trivial suggestion. On the other hand, when you try to somehow prove it, you will get some problem. For example, the data that is usually used to support this idea comes from many different sources. For example, we know that contradictory perceptual information leads to the decreased preference rating for the object. So this is from the paper by 1995 by Simon and Lee. So you have possible figures like blocks and sticks, and you have impossible figures, and the result that they got is that possible figures are always preferred to the impossible ones. They didn't, they actually wanted to look at mere exposure and different things, but this is one of the results from their paper. There are other studies that investigated, for example, Straver-Levy, Bornstein, and others. It is one example. The impossible figures means the break of our predictions, because when we try to somehow follow this figure, we see that predictions based on one part of it is inconsistent with the predictions based on the other part. This is one of the, I think, most surprising studies, because it is a study by Moshe Bar, and he tried to investigate quite trivial things, in my opinion. So that's mainly why this study is surprising, but what he tried to find out is whether do we prefer sharp or curved objects. So you have like this watch, this one has sharp angles, this one is round, and they have similar abstract patterns like those ones. So quite effectively they got that we prefer curved shapes. We don't like sharp shapes. And it probably cannot be attributed to some kind of denture. because it's will be quite strange from the evolutionary perspective to expect that we will expect some kind of danger from the abstract pattern like that one. It doesn't look like danger, but we still don't like it. And for example, of course there is a motion. I think it's the most obvious example when our predictions are influencing what we, our affect or our emotions. So, for example, I don't know if it will, yeah, it tried to work. It's too fast. So, I'll try the other one. Oh yeah. So, in those examples, the movement pattern is breaking. So, you have first three stages of movement when it's called here, 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 and on the last one, on the fourth, when it actually comes down here, the time of the stage is different from the first stage. So you have like three movements, three stages of 120 milliseconds, and then the time of last stage should be either the same or different. And for example, this one, if it will work, okay. Yeah, you can see like the movement pattern based at the last stages of the movement. And it is also quite effectively that what was found that we don't like the movement pattern where the movement breaks, the movement sequence breaks. The same goes about music. It's again a common place now that music is almost mostly about expectations. Ah yeah, there are the results, I won't stop on them. Yeah. Now there is another set of effects that can be explained from the viewpoint of affective feedback. Those are the effects of fluency of processing. БПИ означает беглость переработки информации. So this, for example, is an experiment. You probably won't see it, but there is a prototype set of dots and sets with different levels of distortions. Similarly, here we have an original image, which can be either low in symmetry or high in symmetry, and those are distortions with either high deviance from the original or average deviance. And as you will probably expect, here we get that when we distort the prototype, we don't like the distorted pattern. And similarly here, we prefer phases with high averageness and with perfect symmetry. So both factors that allow us to more easily predict the perceptual representation of the phase, they lead to increased lighting. But all those effects are like, they're not direct. They can be explained from hypothesis testing viewpoint, but there are many other possibilities how we can explain them. And for example, here's another one. It's now it's from one of the student studies that was done in collaboration with Army and Omar. So we have a visual search task when you need to find a face defined by the conjunction of two features, and there is a mask, and then you need to click on the square where the face is. And then you are asked to evaluate the face on a scale which there is like and don't like continuum. And we also use eye tracking to measure the eye movement, so we can separate the random errors from the errors that happen when observers have actually looked at this target. And what we get is that when observers looked at the target for a long time and found it, they preferred it more than average. And the opposite pattern was found when the observers made an error. So you don't like the target if you looked at it for a long time, and you like it, but you didn't find it, and you like it if you have been looking at it for a long time and you classified it correctly at the time. And we also used the hypothesis testing and affective feedback to explain those phenomena. So what we try to do next is to make a more direct test of this hypothesis. And the priming phenomena that Armi told today and yesterday seems like a natural candidate for that testing. Because priming is basically about forming an expectation about the world of some form. And it seems that we will get an easy and clear effect of priming on preferences. We didn't have it, at least for a long time. So with the priming of pop-out paradigm, with the search from three phases. One of them was defined by unique color, so you have a odd one out search or a singleton search. And there were three experiments in that paradigm, and they differed a little in their conditions. But in each one of them you have a series of such search trials, and then there was a evaluation program. I will tell more about the design. Yeah. Here is the phases were on 4 degrees radius, 4 degree eccentricity. And here is the design of the first experiment. So we have strips of the length from 1 to 7. There were 12 examples of each strip, and some of them ended in the same target color, and some of them, for some of them, the color of the target was changed from the last trial of the strip. And in the second experiment, and the observer had to evaluate the target phase after the strip. In the second experiment, we changed conditions a little, so we decreased the variability in the strip length. Now there was only 2, 4, and 6 strips of the length 2, 4, and 6, and the observer created both target and distractor. And finally, in the last experiment, we it has the same design as the experiment, but it has the observer created phases with the same color. So here we get gray phase and color phase on the conjunction search. Here we have conjunction color phase on both sides of the time. So we get a nice priming effect. At least we get nice positive priming. So when there is no switch in the strip, your search time decreases, and when there is a switch on the last trial, the search time increases on that last trial. So that looks like a classic priming of pop-out effect. But we didn't get anything with the preferences. So here is, for example, the first experiment where the subject rated targets only. You see that the strip length has no clear relationship with the rating of the target item. And similarly, there is no difference between switch and no switch condition. In the second experiment, it looked like there might be some relationship, because on the longest strips, targets were rated more negatively than the distractor, but it happened both on no switch and switch condition. And the same as the last experiment. Why we actually, after the second experiment, we tried to look at the search time, supposing that we could probably explain the differences or lack of results somehow by search time. So the subject who has the priming effect on the last trial, they will have long search time, and we get some interactions. But I won't talk about them much because on the next experiment those interactions went away. So those three experiments basically showed us that priming effects do not influence preferences. And why could it happen? There is a number of possible reasons. So faces could be complex stimuli that have many different features. It's a bad explanation because in previous experiments we used faces everything worked. So we also can say that the color search task is quite simple, and there is a lot of time that determines the gender of the target. And for example, we can also say that a change of color doesn't break expectations. That is also a bad one because we have a priming effect on reaction time. There is a number of other explanations. So the second part of my talk, I will talk about experiments that's different on almost all of those, all the parameters from the former ones. So it's kind of, we try to change the paradigm and see whether we can find the priming effect using different stimuli, different tasks, etc. And we use the task that is that I call the monster search task. When you need to find you have a lot of small monsters on the screen which have different color, and you need to find the one that has a different color. For example, here you need to find the green one because others are either blue or kind of other blue. And here, for example, it's the red one. So yeah, the design was following. The observers used, they simply had this display on the screen, and they need to click with mouse on the object that differs in color from all the others. And they have 4 repeating trials with repeating conditions, and on the last trial, the conditions could be changed, and they could be changed in several ways. So we have here a target item, and it could be either old, the same as in previous trials, novel, or it could be replaced with one of the distractor colors. Similarly, the distractor could be old, and in that case, we simply keep all the conditions as they were in the first 4 trials. We could replace it with the novel one. We could replace it with the target. And yeah, one of the distractor colors always was the same. So we changed only one of the distractors if we change it. Basically, yeah, here is the scheme again. For example, in that condition, everything is the same on the first 4 trials and on the last one. And for example, in this condition, we switch the target and distractor from the last trial. And the results of the experiment, they are actually quite good from my opinion, because, well, first, of course, we have a timing effect. So on the first trial of each click, there is a long time, then it decreases, and then on the last trial, it's highly dependent on the conditions. So here are the conditions. We have on the x-axis the target conditions, and the colors mean the different distractor conditions. So this one is a condition when we kept everything the same. It has the fastest time, which is quite expected. Then when we change only the distractor, the time increases, but not significantly. It increases more when we replace target with novel target while keeping the distractor the same. There is slight discrepancy in the result because the condition when both the distractor and target were novel at the same time as when the target was replaced with distractor and distractor was replaced with target. The switch condition, they're all reversed. But those results are okay, they're expected from the primary literature. Here's what we got on preferences. Yeah, I forgot to tell you how the preferences were measured. We asked participants to choose from 3 objects that has color of target item, distractor item, and the second distractor. On half of the trials, we asked them to choose the most preferred, and on the other half, we asked them to choose the least preferred. So, and we asked them to do it for all 3 of trials. So you have 3 objects on the screen, and you need to choose first the most preferred, then the second most preferred, and then the last. So basically, what we got on this plot is the ratings of target item compared to the old distractor, the distractor that hasn't been changed. When everything is kept the same, the target is not different from distractor. It has the same rating. The same happens when one of the distractors is replaced with novel. And what is interesting, and here is the first discrepancy with the reaction time result, is that when the target is novel, and for example, in any independent of the distractor condition, we didn't get any influence of the priming on preferences. So we have here the difference. When the target became novel, we get an increased reaction time. We didn't get a corresponding decrease in the preference rating. And when we have a decreased rating for target, and when it was replaced with a distractor. So when the target was replaced with a distractor, both when the second distractor was novel or it was replaced with target, we get a decreased preference rating. And what it actually means is that there are probably different mechanisms that lead to the changes in reaction time and in preferences. They are partly overlapping because the switch condition, the role reversal condition, got effect both on distractor, on reaction times, and on rating. But simply replacing the target with novel didn't lead to lower preferences for it. And it did led to an increased reaction time. And here are some conclusions. So, the first 3 experiments and the conditions in the last one, they show that facilitation of the processing is by itself doesn't lead to an increased or decreased rating. So the facilitation of processing is not enough for changes in preferences. And the second is that switching between distractor and target, changing one of the distractors, replacing one of the distractors with target also do not provide a decreased rating. Only when target is replaced with distractor, then we get some kind of decreased preferences. Those results cannot be explained simply by the inhibition of distractor, because in that case, in the last experiment, we will get some results when everything is kept old. We should expect that according to the inhibition of distractor account, we will get lower preferences for distractor, and it means higher preferences for target. We didn't get any difference in the old condition. And so we can say that there are either 2 kinds of hypotheses or 2 kinds of expectations. Some of them are related to the changes in reaction time and preferences, while others don't. And yeah, that's probably all. Thank you all for attention. Я не знаю, надо ли давать summary notes?
Ну, я думаю, если у нас есть время, у нас, по-моему, есть какое-то, если очень кратко.
Краткое summary на...
Краткое summary на русском.
Да. Ну, в общем, краткое summary на русском. Short summary in Russian. Первые три эксперимента, в которых мы пытались, используя парадигму поиска уникального по цвету лица, получить изменения в предпочтениях, они не дали никаких чистых результатов. И есть множество причин, по которым это могло произойти так. Потому что когда эксперимент не работает, причин всегда больше, чем когда он работает. Когда он работает, это значит, что ваша гипотеза подтвердилась. Когда он не работает, это может быть значит все, что угодно. Соответственно, что мы попробовали? Мы попробовали сделать достаточно радикальные изменения в парадигме. Мы оставили поиск по цвету, но, как вы видели, мы полностью заменили стимулы, увеличили количество стимульного материала, изменили то, как оцениваются предпочтения. И нам повезло, мы получили тот результат, который хотели. Причем очень интересно то, что изменения во времени реакции не полностью соответствуют изменениям по оценкам. Это, на мой взгляд, крайне важно, потому что в литературе еще, помимо всего прочего, сейчас есть небольшие дискуссии на тему того, что мы вообще можем называть ожиданиями. И когда у нас, допустим, просто происходит ускорение переработки вследствие каких-то механизмов, можно говорить, что мы ожидали этот стимул. И если наше изначальное предположение о том, что у нас есть какие-то гипотезы, которые сопровождаются аффективной обратной связью, верно, то похоже то, что вот последний эксперимент, он показывает, что это, в чем заключаются эти гипотезы. Они заключаются не просто в том, что старый объект будет старым, и не просто в том, что цель будет старой, и не просто, что дистрактор будет старым. Они заключаются в более сложном соотношении их ролей. Что дистрактор должен оставаться дистрактором, цель оставаться целью. И когда эти роли меняются, тогда у нас наступает негативно-эффективная обратная связь. Вот.
Спасибо.
Ну все, спасибо.
Да, вопросы.
Последний.
Последний?
Да, вопрос еще.
Да, так их и не было еще. So questions.
Все, понял.
Okay.
So, my question is about your monster search task. Do you think that your stimuli, your monsters, are better controlled in terms of features involved in this task? What do I mean? Well, the shapes of these monsters are in fact complex shapes. So these are actually the conjunctions of curvatures and corners and so on. And in fact, your monsters are similar in terms of shapes to some degree. Could there be some kind of confound between? Well, I see that the color is more simple feature in your task, and while people are searching for a color singleton, they should have no problem with it. But when they're estimating their preferences, so could there be some kind of confound between shapes of different targets and destructors and affect this preference judgment?
Переведете обратно?
Значит, поскольку целевой признак цвет, понятно, по нему найти довольно легко объект, а вот форма, она все-таки состоит из множества, на самом деле, довольно простых признаков, и разные объекты, цели и дистракторы включают в себя так или иначе примерно один и тот же ограниченный набор этих признаков. Поэтому сходство между ними с точки зрения формы, оно довольно велико. И вот даже мое впечатление было, что некоторые цели, некоторые дистракторы по форме очень похожи. Поэтому, допустим, если стоит задача оценки предпочтений, то, скажем, сходство форм каким-то между дистрактором и целью может смешаться и каким-то образом повлиять, что вы об этом писали.
Okay, so the short answer is that we try to control for it because each color has been present in each condition, each of the 7 conditions, So the shape was always chosen randomly. So we could say that if there would be some effect of the shape on preferences, which probably there is, it should go away with the randomization, because simply because the shape was always randomly chosen, so it's hard to expect that it should have any influence on the preferences.
I will just comment on that. I mean, I think I would do the same thing. I mean, are there some monsters that are more likable than the others? So but that could be easily checked, right?
Yeah.
Let's say, for example, in one condition there was, just by random accident, there was a lot of red monsters in one condition, which is very unlikely.
No, there couldn't be a lot of red monsters in one condition because the color was factorial. We had the factorial design for color, but the randomized design for shape. So it could be possible that we have, for example, a lot of these shapes in one of the conditions. But given the number of conditions and number of trials and number of subjects, it is highly improbable.
Oh, sorry.
Андрей, у меня скорее вопрос о функциях эмоций непосредственно. Вот твои эксперименты позволяют показать, что в ситуации противоречия эмоции могут выступать как своего рода механизм. Вот вопрос о причинно-следственных связях. Возможно ли, такой теоретический скорее вопрос, что в принципе любое эмоциональное реагирование, любая эмоциональная реакция может быть описана в терминах предсказания и противоречия? Или эмоции в частности могут обеспечивать ситуацию предсказания и реагировать также, и действовать, соответственно, в массе других ситуаций?
So the question was about functions of emotions, very theoretical one. And the idea was whether we can suggest that emotions are the reason for all prediction processes and for all conflict resolution processes, for example, or emotions play huge role in expectations and predictions, but they also kind of influence some other processes, but they are not like the ground of the basis of this first.
А можно я к этому вопросу уточнение, пояснение как бы. Если я правильно понимаю, если ситуация соответствует ожиданиям, то возникает позитивная эмоция, да? Можно Винтер и Сент-Петербург?
Сильно позитивно. Я.
Не факт.
Нет, но если так сложно, не обязательно.
Давайте не пробуем в другую сторону направлять это свой презент. Whatever. So, вы просто, наверное...
Да. Ну, идея моя какая? Было показано, вот мы ожидаем такую зиму, а вышла другая. А если бы наоборот, мы ожидали вот ту, которая справа, а вышла слева, у меня были бы негативные эмоции. Это, по сути, тот же вопрос.
So the question, as reinterpreted by Professor Lafayette, is we claim, Andrei claims that emotions are the result of comparison of our predictions and the reality that we observe. Here we have expectations on the slide to the left, yes, of nice winter time in St. Petersburg, get some very different situation. So if we switch, for example, could we switch the reality in our predictions if we expect something that usually happens, very warm kind of winter, whether we will have any negative emotions, because we also have this discrepancy between our expectations and the reality, but the discrepancy is like to the other side. Yes, we expected something worse, but we got something better.
I think, я отвечу, наверное, по-русски тогда. Я думаю, что на самом деле все-таки эти вопросы надо разделить на два, потому что первая часть была больше про то, могут ли эмоции отражать какую-то другую функцию, кроме проверки ожидания, а вторая часть была про то, всегда ли неоправдание наших ожиданий приводит к негативной эмоциональной реакции. Я думаю, что по поводу первой части вопроса все сложнее, потому что, конечно, есть все биологические теории эмоций.
Но они очень близки к тому, что мы только что обсуждали.
Да.
Теория Симонова фактически про это.
Но, к сожалению, в теории Симонова там включается еще такой концепт, как потребности. Мне кажется, что когда включаются потребности, то все становится крайне непонятно. Ну, в общем, я думаю, что переживание эмоций как таковое, оно несет именно функцию, связанную с ожиданиями. Бихевиоральные компоненты, какое-нибудь отползание от боли, оно, которое тоже иногда считается связанным с эмоциями, оно, в общем-то, существует независимо от, не особо тесно связано с эмоциональным переживанием, и функции его как раз могут быть другие. Что мы должны разделять разные компоненты того, что обычно называется эмоциями. И если мы говорим именно об эмоциональном переживании, то там, мне кажется, что у него будет именно функция, связанная с проверкой ожиданий. А что касается второй части вопроса...
Can I translate the first one? Okay. So the first part of it, Andrei divided into two parts of the question, and the first part of it was the answer was mostly yes. We can say that functions of emotion is mostly estimating the discrepancy between predictions and expectations and the reality. Though, of course, there are lots and lots of theories of emotions, and emotions is a very compound process, so we cannot say like only this part. But basically,
the experience of emotion is, in my opinion, mostly related to the discrepancies between expectations and reality. While the behavioral components or some physiological components that they usually accompany negative or positive emotion, they are probably can be dissociated from them and have other functions.
okay, спасибо.
И вторая часть вопроса, вопрос, по сути, если я правильно понимаю, всегда ли сюрприз оценивается нами негативно? Всегда ли удивление негативно?
Нет, не удивление, я ожидаю, но я не хочу этого. И поступило не то, что я ожидаю.
В смысле, я не хочу.
Ну, да.
Я предполагаю, что зима в Петербурге такая. Я могу предположить из того, что она была в прошлом году такая, еще так, что она будет
но
такая.
мне бы не хотелось, чтобы она была такая, как справа.
Будете дополнительные.
Ну, ожидания есть, но мне не ходит. Почему это и вопрос?
Ожидания и оценка результата, мне кажется, они будут работать как бы взаимно дополняющие, что ли, если мы будем говорить об итоговой оценке, потому что у вас все равно будет хуже отношение к этой зиме, когда вы на картинке слева, по крайней мере, в какой-то начальный период, когда вы узнаете о том, что она будет такая, потому что вы этого не ожидаете. Это как если вы заходите в дом, и тут у вас внезапно вас все начинают поздравлять, окружать шампанским шариками. Вроде как, с одной стороны, что-то приятное происходит, а с другой стороны...
Okay, the answer to the second part of the question was mostly about whether we can say that any surprise, because surprise is the discrepancy between
Я предлагаю это
expectations.
экспериментально проверить.
We can easily do that. Whether surprise is the discrepancy between expectations and reality always contains some negative emotional response. So the answer is yes, but even the surprise is really, really great, will lead to some good, positive emotions. The beginning of it, because it's this discrepancy, yeah, and we did not expect it, the beginning of it will be negative. Am I right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ага, еще один вопрос? Еще один? One more? Oh, you did not, sorry. Как один? So, can we ask, yeah, because...
No.
I'm sorry, yes, you were this at the thing. Good.
What was my question? It's been so long. No, it's so we're talking about what you're saying. Priming and the evaluation are two different processes. So, do you think there's any relation between attention and evaluation, or is it just sort of a coincidental correlation that's just there, but not really a causal effect between them?
Перевод вопроса. Является ли... То есть Андрей говорит о том, что прайминг и оценка предпочтений – это разные вещи. Насколько мы можем считать оценку предпочтений и внимание разными процессами? И насколько они могут быть связаны, или они просто коррелируют случайным образом? Так получилось в каком-нибудь.
Are you asking about attention in general or attention as a priming effect?
Yeah, well, attention as a priming effect. I mean, my opinion has been that priming influences attention, and whether this is dissociating from that or not.
В данном случае внимание подразумевается как результат истории, да, то есть, собственно, эффект прайминга, который определяет избирательность последующего деятельности.
Basically, I think that in priming effect, the one that we observe, there are different components in it. And it looks like that there is a partial overlap between the priming effect that changes in reaction time, which probably can be explained as a sort of attention-based process, and the results on preferences. So probably I would say that some part of the priming effect will be directly related to emotional processes, so they will overlap completely, while some probably lower levels of the priming or more basic forms of the priming wouldn't lead to a preference change and wouldn't be related to emotions. It's I think the examples with some kind of basic physiological process can be used. If we are, or for example, if we are closing one eye, it can be treated as a sort of priming because you can see with that eye and your efficiency on the search trials will be much lower. But I don't think that it will lead to change in preference. Очень быстрый перевод. Но мне кажется, что если мы говорим о внимании как прайминг эффект в данном случае, то стоит их как-то, что прайминг эффекте много всего намешано, и, соответственно, какая-то часть его имеет отношение к предпочтениям и эмоциям, какая-то не имеет. И, в принципе, если мы закроем человеку один глаз, и это будет тоже небольшой прайминг эффект, потому что он будет хуже потом искать, это вряд ли приведет к каким-то сильным изменениям в предпочтениях.
Наоборот. Если человеку закрыть один глаз, он будет не сильно доволен.
Будет сильно не предпочитать. Да, пожалуйста, последний вопрос.
My question is about love for monsters. Could you go to the last slide about love? То есть вопрос про любовь к монстрам. So, actually, two small questions. First, please, no, the previous one. No, again. This one. So, could you please explain again what was the procedure of rating love for monsters? Как оценивали любовь к монстрам? Технически сколько сразу показывает картина. And the second question is, which of these results are statistically significant?
Oh, of course. So, the third part, how the love for monsters was measured. So, we have three items on the screen that are positioned on the circle. So, for example, you have monster here, here, and here. They have different color. So, this one is of target color, for example. This has the color of one type of distractor. This has the color of the other type of distractor.
Well, they also of the same shape?
No.
Different shape, different color.
Different shape, different color. And you need to, in half of the trials, you need to first choose the most preferred one, then the second most preferred, then the last one. On the other half of trials, you need to do the opposite. You need to first choose the least preferred one, then the second least preferred, and then the last one. And there was, I think, 6 colors, 7 conditions, and each color was repeated in each condition for, I think, for 2 times. I might be wrong about the number of repetitions, so it was either 1 repetition or 2 repetitions. For statistical significance, here the bars mean the 95% confidence interval. So we got the statistically significant decrease when the target was replaced with distractor. both below the zero line, which means the rating for the old destructor, and also below the rating for target in old or no condition. And here, basically, well, if the confidence interval do not overlap much, then there is a statistical significance. Да, еще раз о том, как оценивались цели. У вас было на экране 3 монстра. В половине проб вас просили по очереди из них выбирать наиболее предпочитаемого. То есть вы выбрали одного, у вас осталось 2, потом из 2 оставшихся одного. И потом на последнего так что нужно было щелкнуть для завершения гештальта. И в половине проб вас просили выбирать наиболее предпочитаемых, в половине наименее предпочитаемых. Было по 7, я не помню точно количество цветов и количество повторений, это было либо 5 цветов и 2 повторения, либо 7 цветов и 1 повторение, по-моему, так. Да, простите, 7 условий, 5 цветов. Окей. Вторая повторение, по-моему, все-таки одно. Но это получалось и так достаточно долгая процедура. Вторая часть вопроса про статистическую значимость. На этих картинках линии обозначают 95% интервалы доверительные. В принципе, если средняя одной из точек не пересекается с доверительным интервалом другой точки, то мы можем говорить о том, что там есть статистическая значимость.